Welcome back, folks, to Classic Mario, Remake or Rebreak. Today, we'll be looking at the last portable remake in the 2D Classic series, Super Mario Advance 4 Super Mario Bros. 3. Whether you're joining me from before or after the Super Mario Advance 2 review, I can safely say that we're in for a treat because Super Mario Bros. 3, as far as the Classic series goes, is what I consider to be the best of the whole entire bunch. Let's waste no more time and jump right into the review. I've got tons to say and little time to say it. Obviously, Super Mario Bros. Was a huge success in North America, Europe, and Japan, and despite Mario 2's drastically different take on the franchise, it was received well and remains the third best-selling game on the console. Naturally, a Super Mario Bros. 3 couldn't be far behind. Right? Mario 3 began development in 1986 and was released to Japanese audiences in October of 1988. A shortage of cartridge materials prevented the game from being quickly localized overseas, so Mario 3, along with Zelda 2, remained Japanese exclusive for 2 more years. So, in the meanwhile, Nintendo began teasing the new game, with the most prominent example of whorish commercialism appearing in the 1989 movie The Wizard. In February of 1990, the game was finally released to American audiences, and it enjoyed an explosion of popularity that has still survived somewhat to this day. Many regard Mario 3 as not only the best Mario game on the NES, but the best game Nintendo has ever made, period. So the real question becomes, does the GBA remake do it justice? Let's begin with the story. As usual, the remake provides an opening cutscene, and this one pretty much says all that needs to be said. We open on a mysterious wooden ship flying through the rains, which makes a pit stop at a castle in a grassy sort of area. Out of the ship jumps Larry Koopa, Bowser's son, who brushes a toad off to the side and transforms the king into a Cobrat from Super Mario Bros. 2. The toad sends a letter to the princess notifying her that Bowser's 7 nefarious children, the Koopalings, are rampaging across the Mushroom World and have transformed the kings of the 7 other kingdoms, not including the Bean Bean or Sprixie kingdoms, into various animals. Toadstool approaches the Mario Brothers and asks them to take on the Koopalings and restore peace to the Mushroom World. Mario and Luigi rush off to do just that. So, yeah, Princess Toadstool isn't kidnapped in this game. That alone makes this game stand out amongst the rest. But to sweeten the deal even further, Mario gets to explore an entire world worth of levels. So shouldn't this game be called Super Mario World and the actual world called Super Mario Island? Is it wrong for me to say that I think Super Mario Bros. 3 looks better than Super Mario World? And I'm not even talking about the GBA or even SNES remakes. I mean the original release on NES. And I still think Super Mario World is a good-looking game, very colorful and nice in the eyes, but when compared to Mario 3, you start to notice that some of the sprites aren't all that well drawn, especially the Koopalings and Bowser, and that the environments can be bland at times. Mario 3 on the NES, on the other hand, still looks great even now, one of the best-looking games on the system, in fact. In addition to having more aesthetic variety overall, the sprites are colorful, well-drawn, and well-animated. Even the backgrounds have a surprising amount of detail to them. The GBA version features a more colorful palette and more detailed backgrounds, and is about on par with Advance 1, as both games reuse sprites and backgrounds from the All-Stars version. And you know what? It still looks pretty damn good by GBA standards, eking out an advantage over its 8-bit competition. The music is also amazing. Again, there are only like 5 tracks, but they're all really strong. A catchy as fuck overworld theme, a remix of Mario 1's Underground theme, a Coin Heaven song, an atmospheric fortress song, the deliciously sinister airship theme, as well as a new theme for each world, and of course the amazing underwater theme. Mario 1's soundtrack may be the most classic of them all, but in terms of catchiness and atmosphere, the tunes in Mario 3 are clearly better. 8-bit music normally doesn't tickle my fancy, but I think the instrumentation used in the NES version of Mario 3 still sounds great, and encompasses all the energy the previous 3 games were kind of lacking. The GBA version manages to sound even better, but that's mostly due to my overall preference for MIDI instruments over 8-bit wave channels. The GBA version also contains a number of tracks added to the SNES version. A track for the opening demo, which was spookily silent before, and a track for Letters from the Princess. My tastes and biases aside, I think both the NES and GBA versions sound great, with my preference leaning toward the GBA version. But what really makes Mario 3 stand out in the series to this day, despite all the new installments released since, is the gameplay. All the familiar elements from Mario 1 make a welcome comeback in this game. Floating question blocks, brick blocks, vines, as well as the familiar enemies like Goombas, Koopa Troopas, Paratroopas, Cheep Cheeps, Bloopers, Piranha Plants in both green and red flavors, Lakitus, Spinies, Buzzy Beetles, Hammer Brothers, and Padobus and bullet bills. Yeah. Folks, I forgot to talk about the Podoboos and the bullet bills in the Mario 1 review, which is really ironic considering how I said they were among the most classic enemies in video game history. There's not much to either of them. Podoboos are fireball enemies that jump out of the lava, and bullet bills fire out of tall cannons. Mario 3 introduces a number of new enemies as well. Chain Chomps, Spikes, Boo Buddies, Dry Bones, Fire Brothers, Boomerang Brothers, Boom Booms, Thwomps, Rocky Wrenches, Fire Snakes, and even a number of variations on older enemies. And if you thought the enemy roster was impressive, just check out the power-up selection. The obligatory Super Mushrooms, Fire Flowers, and Starmen return here, but the best new basic power-up is the Super Leaf. The Super Leaf allows Mario to become Raccoon Mario, allowing him to swipe at enemies with his tail and glide through the air by mashing the jump button. If Mario runs fast enough, the P gauge at the bottom of the screen will fill up, and when it's full, Mario can jump into the air and fly for a short period of time. The flying control is a lot more intuitive than the Cape Feather in Super Mario World, though it doesn't last nearly as long. That's not all that Mario 3 has to offer. A number of rare commodity power-ups, as I like to call them, can be found hidden in secret passages or at the many Toad houses. First, there's the Tanuki suit, or the Statue Leaf in the case of its Super Mario 3D Land appearance. The Tanuki suit is essentially the Super Leaf, except Mario has the ability to transform it into an invincible statue by pressing down an A. Every single review of Mario 3 that I've ever seen is always confused as to what a Tanuki is, or why it becomes a statue, so I decided to do a little digging. Apparently, Tanukis are raccoon dogs, a species of canine native to Japan that just happen to look like raccoons. They play a huge role in traditional Japanese mythology and folklore, often depicted as supernatural and mischievous tricksters that could shapeshift into anything they pleased. Supposedly, these creatures needed leaves to aid in their shapeshifting magic, so hence the Super Leaf. As far as the statue thing goes, not only is this meant to symbolize the Tanuki's shapeshifting powers, but Tanuki statues are also really common in Japan, meant to bring good fortune upon their owners. They're also famous for having gigantic ball sacks, which I get to censor for my own protection. It's pretty cool, ain't it? The next commodity power-up is the P-Wing, another iteration of the Super Leaf, which allows Mario to fly for as long as he wants. These are particularly useful for levels you just feel like skipping, so I recommend holding on to them for as long as possible. Next, we have the Frog Suit, which is fucking useless on land, but a godsend underwater. It makes control a lot more fluent and a lot less restricted. Next, we have the Hammer Brothers suit, which is rare as shit, but allows you to kill any enemy in the game with ease. Thwomps, Boos, and Podoboos don't even stand a chance. And finally, we have the Cloud, which allows Mario to skip levels that he doesn't feel like completing. But be sure you beat the level after it, or your ass is getting dragged all the way back. Overall, until Super Mario 3D World came out, Super Mario Bros. 3 not only has the biggest variety of power-ups in any Mario game ever, but all of them have different functions and are a joy to use. Super Mario World may have had Yoshi, which was fun in his own right, but the power-up selection here is still tons better. But the biggest and most important difference of all is the control. Great strong sads Ghost, the control in this game is hands down AAA, no fooling, finger-licking, Irkin-McGurkin perfect. The acceleration is perfect, the jump height and mid-air control are perfect, evading enemies and landing jumps in their heads is perfect. And unlike Mario World, where every jump was abrupt and precision platforming was kind of a pain in the dick, Mario gets a reasonable amount of hang time that allows him to land perfectly on pipes and blocks while not taking forever to land like in Super Metroid. Those who consider Super Mario World to be the best would disagree, including one of my favorite YouTubers, some call me Johnny, saying it's too floaty. Johnny, I love your work, and I have a lot of respect for you both as a human being and as a content creator, but I could not disagree more. I mean, it's like you even said in your defense of Sonic's floaty jump in your review of Sonic Adventure 1. Floatier controls make it easier to land your jumps. I can land hits on enemies that I could never make in either Mario 1 or Mario World because of just how responsive and fluent Mario's controls are in this game. And I'm not saying that Mario's controls in World sucked, they were perfectly functional and playable. What I am saying is that Mario 3 takes the control that one step beyond functional. That kind of control that is so smooth and so intuitive that the very act of pressing buttons and moving your character around becomes a source of immense satisfaction in and of itself. Games like 3D Zelda, Boost Formula Sonic, Metroid Prime are all other examples of what I'm talking about. This is the biggest reason why Mario 3 is, in my book, the best of the classic Mario games. When you make a game in which simply moving your character around is a source of satisfaction, then you, sir, have a winner. In tune with the previous remakes, Luigi is also playable, with his own specific physics, but he's not all that much fun to play as. He's the polar opposite of his Advance 2 appearance, and instead of having an incredibly floaty jump, he almost has no hang time whatsoever. Hell, his jump is even more abrupt than Mario's in World. Luigi was so much fun to play in Mario 2 and World because he offered that floatier alternative to Mario's playstyle. But here he just feels off. You can't even play as him all the time, you have to trade off between him and Mario whenever you die. In Deluxe and Advance 2, you could switch off whenever you wanted, so why couldn't they implement that here? Overall, I'm a little disappointed with Luigi's appearance in this remake. Now let's get into the meat of this review. Super Mario Bros. 3 contains an astonishing amount of variety for even a late release NES game. The game contains a total of 90 levels spread over 8 worlds, with the first 7 taking place in the many kingdoms of the Mushroom World. Each has been taken over by one of Bowser's children, the Koopalings. Iggy, Lemmy, Morton Jr., Roy, Ludwig, Larry, Curly, Moe, Wendy-O, and apparently Bowser Jr. somewhere along the line, though he does not make an appearance in this title. All of these characters were named after Western celebrities, such as Morton Downey Jr., Iggy Pop, Wendy-O Williams, and Ludwig von Beethoven. World 1, Grassland is your average grassy and assy plains area. And as we can see here, Mario 3 introduces a world map through which to navigate the many levels. Despite the average theme, each level in this world looks slightly different. The level design is very well thought out, a step above Mario 1, 2, and Lost levels. Everything is placed with intentional purpose. Every level introduces some new enemy or power-up or stage hazard. And even if something comes back, you can rest assured it's with some new spin on it that makes it new all over again. The length is also perfect. Each stage can be completed in approximately a minute and a half. Disappointingly, there aren't any collectible coins in the GBA version, which I think is somewhat lazy on behalf of the developers. But in all fairness, it wasn't really an earth-shattering addition to Advance 1 to begin with, so I think I'll live. Still would have been nice though. Though I consider Super Mario World to have the better level design overall, Super Mario Bros. 3 is still really competent in comparison. The game rewards keen exploration with commodity power-ups like Frog and Tanuki suits, and some of the later fortresses really require you to use your noggin to find the way forward. Scattered throughout the maps are toad houses where you can pick up a single power-up for free, which is stored in your inventory. You can use your inventory to hold on to a large number of mushrooms, starmen, fireflowers, as well as commodities like P-Wings and Hammer Brothers suits. If you reach a level that you have trouble beating, simply pop on a P-Wing and fly over that shit. This is infinitely more useful than the rather lackluster item retainer in Super Mario World, which would always replace more useful power-ups like cape feathers with worthless mushrooms. Partway through, you enter a fortress and take on Boom Boom, a Koopa-like creature that swings his arms wildly and can fly or jump depending on the level you fight him in. Get used to him, folks, because you'll have to fight this jackass about 13 more times before the credits roll. As annoying as that can be, I've got his pattern down so well that I can beat him in approximately 10 seconds. At the end of the world, you enter the kingdom's castle and meet the Toad from the beginning of the game. Larry, the Koopaling in charge of this world, will take off in his airship, which is another of my favorite types of Mario levels. The level design in these things is some of the best in the game, and the greater emphasis on bottomless pits really works well with Mario's control scheme in this game. At the end, you fight Larry, who really isn't that much of a threat. Afterwards, the wand will come back down and the king will be changed back to normal.
You saved me!
Afterwards, you receive a letter from the princess, along with some goodies, usually P-Wings. World 2, Desert Hill, is a desert world, obviously. Even within this theme, there's a ton of variation. The boss of this world is Morton Koopa Jr., who really isn't that much different from the last Koopaling besides being bigger, though he does shoot magic attacks at you more often. After stomping him into next week, Mario moves on to World 3, Seaside, which contains mostly underwater and oceanside levels. The boss of this world is Wendy-O, who is unique in that she attacks you with ring projectiles. She's still pretty easy. Next is World 4, Big Island, whose gimmick is, as you might imagine, that everything is huge. Here, Mario contends with giant Goombas, Koopa Troopas, and Piranha Plants, as well as giant question and brick blocks. At the end, you face Iggy, who's also pretty fucking easy. World 5 is another grassy plains area, but after entering the swirly tower, you emerge in the sky, which is where the majority of the world takes place. At the end, Roy Koopa joins the fray, and his stomps can stun you momentarily, so be sure to avoid the shockwaves. World 6, Iceland, has an obvious ice and snow gimmick, and is often considered by many fans to be the hardest world in the game. Speaking of which, I had to talk about the difficulty in this game. Unlike the NES Super Mario Bros. 2, which offered 9 lives and 2 continues to get through the entire game, with incredibly limited chances for extra men, the NES version of Super Mario Bros. 3 is tons, and I do mean tons more fair than any of the previous 3 installments. First of all, there are unlimited continues. You can die and die and die until the cows come home and you'll still be able to keep playing, which is just the way it should be. The game also gives you significantly more chances to find 1-up mushrooms, which are hidden all over the levels, and there are a number of bonus games that allow you to pick up even more. When you complete a stage, you receive a mushroom star or fireflower card. If you can match up 3 in a row, you get a lives bonus. If you fuck up, you still get at least 1 life as a courtesy. This is so much better than those lackluster bonus games in Super Mario World where the max was pretty much 3 lives, unless if you were really lucky. Really, when it comes to challenge, Mario 3 is incredibly playable and fair by the system's often ridiculous standards. That being said, I do still have one major gripe. There's no save or password feature. At all. This is a pretty long game, guys, like 5 hours if you're as experienced as I am, and there's no way to put it down and come back to it later? What if something comes up and I have to stop playing? Am I supposed to keep the system turned on the whole time? Because if so, then that's pretty fucking stupid. Mario 1 and Lost Levels were relatively short games, and Mario 2 was moderately longer, but by the time Mario 3 came out in 1990, you'd think at the very least a password system would be in order. The GBA version offers a save feature as well as a quick save feature if you want to stop in the middle of a world. This allows beginners more comfort while still offering experienced players a hefty dose of challenge. At the end of Iceland, you face Lemmy, who has the ability to throw balls at you, but he's still hella easy. World 7 is the Pipe Maze, the world that I contend is the hardest in the game. Like the name suggests, this world is a maze, requiring you to enter and exit the correct pipes to find your way forward. At the end, Mario faces Ludwig, who is not only really fast, but can also cause earthquakes like Roy. After bashing his skull in, Mario will restore the final king, and along with him, the Mushroom World. Now that, my friends, is worth a swig of voltage. A letter from the princess, eh? Come to comment on the good news, I assume? Looks like Mario's getting a salami stroke tonight. Why, you son of a bitch! So yeah, it turns out that Bowser staged this whole thing as a distraction while he ran off with the princess to the Koopa Kingdom. Mario hastens to the final world, Darkland, or Bowser's Castle, and faces a barrage of tanks, airships, and even a regular ship in one case. There's also this weird part where these hands drag you down to these optional levels. After facing one last Boom Boom in the most maze-like fortress of them all, you reach Bowser's Castle, which is a pretty easy level if you know what you're doing. At the end, you face the evil Koopa King himself. He's different from the other bosses in that you can't beat him directly. What you're supposed to do is get him to bash through the floor, which I found really challenging the first time I played, but now I can do it really easy. With one final crash, Bowser will fall through the ground and the day is won. In the next room, Mario approaches the princess, who is happy that peace has been restored to the Mushroom Kingdom. In the NES version, she has the audacity to play a stupid joke on you. Stupid fucking bitch. After that, you watch a slideshow of the many kingdoms, while yet another catchy-ass motherfucking song plays in the background. I don't know what it is, but Mario just has credit themes down pat. After that, if you're playing the GBA version, you're given the freedom to revisit all the worlds and track down the levels you missed. If you can beat them all, you see the true ending, which actually has a different credits song. And that, my friends, was Super Mario Bros. 3. God damn, wasn't that fun. But there's one more thing I have to talk about. Super Mario Advance 4 is one of the few GBA games compatible with the ill-fated e-reader accessory. Don't remember it? Well, neither do I. So, here's the deal. First, you had to buy an e-reader, which probably retailed for a sizable lump of cash. Second, you had to plug the e-reader into your GBA, but that wasn't enough. If you're trying to use the e-reader with your games, you had to get a second GBA and plug the game into it, and then link the two systems together with a link cable. Yeah, so that means that if you don't own a second GBA console, you either had to ask your friend to lend it to you, or just flat out buy a new one. It's no wonder this piece of shit failed so hard. The setup is atrocious. Using the e-reader, you could download power-ups into Mario's inventory, as well as unlock entirely new levels. Yeah, believe it or not, Nintendo designed a total of 30 new levels for Super Mario Advance 4, but because the e-reader sucked so goddamn hard, only 10 of them were ever made available in North America. And of course, stop me if you've heard this one before, but the other 20 levels have only been released in Japan. And you know who the biggest jackass of all time is? Me! Because I asked my parents to get me an e-reader for Christmas 2004, along with the GBA SP. Point is, I have a few of the new levels downloaded onto my copy of Advance 4, and you know what? These levels are actually pretty cool. For one thing, they have collectible Advance coins hidden in them, as well as e-coins, which boggles my mind. They could add them to these extra levels that nobody ever got to play, but not to the regular levels. What's also really cool is that they feature power-ups and enemies from the other classic Mario games. Charging chucks, pinball gates, poison mushrooms, fire sticks. Hell, you can even pick up vegetables and throw them at enemies like in Mario 2. So yeah, forget the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2. The 30 e-reader stages from Super Mario Advance 4 are the real lost levels. Why couldn't these levels just have been part of the regular game? Why make it so that people have to buy a crappy and obscure accessory just to play them? Supposedly there's some kind of ROM patch floating around the internet that allows you to cut through the bullshit and play all 30 of these stages, but when it gets to that, it just showcases what an epic fail the e-reader is. So, remake or re-break? What's the verdict? To my surprise, this was a much closer race than I thought. The NES version of Mario 3 has aged exceptionally well. The game still looks, sounds, and plays well even by the standards set by modern platformers. That being said, I think the winner is still the GBA version. It looks better, I find it sounds better, it plays just as well, and overall it's just a fantastic recreation of a timeless classic. But that's not to say it's perfect. In my opinion, despite this remake being well made overall, it feels like not as much effort was put into it as the previous 3 installments. The lack of collectible coins is eyebrow raising, the e-reader bullshit dampens the experience, and Luigi's appearance is kind of disappointing. Really, the biggest reason it tops the NES version is the save feature. While the NES version still provides a fair amount of challenge, the conspicuous absence of a password system, along with the game's sheer length, makes it the less attractive of the two. But that being said, I dare say that the NES version of Mario 3 still holds up just as well as Super Mario World. As I've said many times before, I consider Super Mario Bros. 3 to be a better game than Super Mario World. And do I even need to explain why? While Mario World has better level design and boss fights, Mario 3 has a more engaging story, better graphics and art direction, better control, better music, and offers plenty of content while not sacrificing replayability. I've always thought this, even when I was a kid playing these games for the first time back in the early 2000s. Bear in mind, folks, I played Mario World before Mario 3, and despite the fun I had with that game, Mario 3 still managed to blow me away, and continues to blow me away to this very day. Super Mario Bros. 3 is a kick-ass game through and through, and I absolutely love it. While I still recommend newcomers check out World first due to its more approachable difficulty, the moment you beat it, hunt down Mario 3 immediately. Get the NES version off the Virtual Console, hunt down the GBA card. Whatever you have to do, just fucking do it. I also challenge Super Mario World fans to give both of these games another playthrough, and reassess their own conceptions of what makes both games so great. Regardless of what anybody says, Super Mario Bros. 3 is one of my top 10 favorite games of all time, and I could not recommend it more. And with that, this marathon is over! Or is it? As a matter of fact, folks, I said back in part 1 that I'd be taking a look at Super Mario All-Stars, the Super Nintendo version of the original 4 classic Mario games, after I finished with the portable versions. So join me next time when I end this son of a bitch once and for all, with a brief, and I do mean brief, review of Super Mario All-Stars, and provide some final thoughts on the classic Mario games. Until next time, I'm ExoParadigmGamer, and I hope you enjoyed the review.